Hey Control Nation, welcome back to Control Players Unite. I am your host, Dr. Red. Today we are presenting the top 10 Pokemon with the most potential for control style play through Twilight Masquerade with some light how to play instructions. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is how we understand potential in this presentation. The new Oxford American Dictionary states that potential means having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. These are cards on the verge of a breakout. Ones you do not often see, but very well could if more players tapped into their power. They could be fun cards that players use for lots of casual play, or competitive cards that players use in tournaments. In both cases, not many players, according to sources like Limitless TCG, are using them for either. And in the case of casual play, I do not see many, if any, players discussing them in a control style context. To clarify, we're using the dictionary definition because, frankly, it's easier. We do not need to peel back the surface for anything deeper. Please leave a comment with the Pokemon you think have the most potential for control style play. I'll also summarize the list at the end. Let's get started. At number 10 we have Abomasnow. Its ability Freezing Disaster reads, Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, can't be healed. As far as cards on the popular side, it prevents the healing of Switch Card, present both in Lost Zone and Big Basic decks. It also prevents Radiant Serena, notably present in Frostlass Spread. It does not, however, stop Monkey Dory, so that might limit this card's appeal. You might have to pair it with your own Monkey Dory for that reason too. But if Creatures Inc. keeps printing control style cards regularly, there could possibly be a healer that this card could seriously disrupt. Next we have Oinkologne. Its attack, Finest Selection, for 2 colorless energy says, flip 3 coins. Put a number of cards up to the number of heads from your discard pile into your hand. This attack is basically Silene with an extra flip. Silene reads, flip 2 coins. Put a number of cards up to the number of heads from your discard pile on top of your deck in any order. Now the key here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the card states on top of your deck, whereas Oinkologne puts them into your hand. So you can use it as an item control deck similar to Magnezone EX or Baby Ursaluna. You can also slap a reversal energy down to inflict Confuse with Perfume Press if need be. Next at number 8 we have Amoonguss. It has the ability Surprise Spores, which reads, during your opponent's turn, if this Pokemon is discarded from your hand by an effect of an attack or ability from your opponent's Pokemon, or by an effect of your opponent's item or supporter cards, discard your opponent's hand. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, your opponent's entire hand. If you're running a control deck, you might have Amoonguss as a one-off just in case you encounter one of these. From Shrouded Fable, Zerosic Scheme reads, your opponent discards cards from their hand until they have 3 cards in their hand. Amoonguss would obviously permit you to disrupt your opponent's hand by completely discarding it, though we do not know how rampant Zerosic Scheme will be. Perhaps it will see use beyond that of Hand Trimmer, which reads, each player discards cards in their hand until they have 5 left. Either way, with hand disruption seemingly becoming a thing, it wouldn't hurt to at least consider Amoonguss in your casual decks. Number 7 is Barbaracle. It has the ability Lost Block. Your opponent puts any prize cards they would take in the Lost Zone instead of into their hand. Now this card could be paired with Forretress EX, which has seen some use with Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX even if as a meme deck. Forretress has the Exploding Energy ability. It states that during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 5 basic grass energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. Then shuffle your deck and this opponent is knocked out. And the prizes your opponent immediately takes are obviously put into the Lost Zone. You could pair Barbaracle with the Dusknoir from Shrouded Fable. It has the Cursed Bomb ability, which states that once during your turn, you may put 13 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and if you do, this Pokemon is immediately knocked out. Any deck in which you give your opponent an easy KO is something to consider Barbaracle, or even just to have it around to possibly disrupt your opponent's ordinary strategy. Next is Screamtail EX at number 6. It has the Scream attack. You can use this attack only if you go second and only during your first turn. Your opponent can't play any supporter cards from their hand during their next turn. To get this card into play easier, it's best to have a copy or 2 of Ditto with the Transformative Start ability. Once during your first turn, If this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may search your deck and choose a basic Pokemon you find there, except any Ditto. If you do, discard this Pokemon and all attached cards and put the chosen Pokemon in its place, then shuffle your deck. It's probably due to the first attack's limited use that this card doesn't see play, but the second attack Crunch is usable. For 1 Psychic and 2 colorless energy, it deals 120 base damage. It reads, discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Now there's a 3 energy attack on Bouffalant that does the same thing, except it puts an energy in the Lost Zone. When Lost Zone rotates, Screamtail's guaranteed energy discard looks appealing, similar to how Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX is the replacement for the F-Block Mawile in Retreat Lock. It also doesn't hurt that Screamtail has a handful of support in the various Ancient Trainers, including Ancient Booster Energy Capsule for an additional 60 HP. The 5th spot belongs to Gothitelle. It has the ability Read the Stars. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck and put one of them back. Put the other card on the bottom of the deck. Typically, you want to top deck the worst of the 2 cards to affect your opponent's draw for turn, but with Chi-Yu EX in the active, you can mill the better of the 2 with Jealousy Singe, wherein you discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. You can also pair Gothitelle with the Salazzle from Stellar Miracle. It has the Sudden Burn attack. For 2 colorless energy, it reads, your opponent discards a card from their hand. If this Pokemon evolved from Salazzle during this turn, they discard 2 more cards. If you top deck the worst card of your opponent's 2 cards with Gothitelle, and your opponent has a low hand count, you could potentially devastate their ability to work through the rest of the match. You can also pair Gothitelle with Luxray V and the Fang Snipe attack to get rid of a much needed trainer. I mean, they all combine well with each other, so why not play them all in a single deck? In 4th place, we have Sharpedo. Its Chew-Off attack for 2 colorless energy and 50 base damage reads, flip 3 coins. For each heads, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. On paper, this card pairs well with the new Salazzle just discussed, but really I could see it in a Kingdra EX deck. It has the King's Order attack. For 1 water energy, it states, put 3 water Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench. Now you could combine this with Kingdra's second attack, which reads 50 plus 30 more damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon, or just leave Sharpedo off to disrupt between attacks. You could also fit Sharpedo into a control box kind of deck, or something more palatable like Chien PAL if for any reason you want a disruption mechanic. But really this card seems to shine with something like Xerosic's Scheme mentioned earlier, wherein you are reducing your opponent's hand to 3. It sounds like hand control is coming back, but we will see. Let's move on. At number 3 we have Greedent EX. A stage 1 at 260 HP and a Terra Pokemon, it has the Never Ever Enough attack for 1 colorless energy. It reads, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put those cards into your hand. If you don't, discard those cards and draw 3. Now what we pair it with, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure, except maybe Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking, which reads, search your deck for 2 cards. Then shuffle your deck and the 2 cards you select go on top of your deck in any order. Otherwise, as far as discarding is concerned, it would have to do as good a job as Ultra Ball, Professor's Research, Carmine, Squawkabilly, and Explorer's Guidance. There's also Kirlia and Liepard. And when I say good job, I mean it discards cards we actually want to be in the discard, so the build should probably have a bunch of them. I'm not sure which archetype it can help, and that isn't already helped well. I would really like to hear your thoughts on the matter. But could it be its own control archetype anyway? Well, there are some Stellar Miracle cards that might help. Area Zero Underdepths reads, if a player has a Terra Pokemon in play, that player can have 8 Pokemon on their bench. Because Greedent is a Terra Pokemon, this card could put more control style cards on the bench while drawing for more support. Briar, a new supporter, reads, you can play this card only if your opponent has exactly 2 prize cards remaining. Until the end of this turn, if your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from one of your Terra Pokemon's attacks, take 1 more prize card. Greedent's second attack Slip and Roll for 3 colorless energy does 210 base damage, so Greedent builds can then become aggro control. Last, Sparkling Crystal reads, the attack cost of the Terra Pokemon this card is attached to is reduced by 1 of any type of energy. So Greedent can now attack with Never Ever Enough for free, Slip and Roll for 2, making it slightly easier to do other things. It's also possible I'm completely wrong, but it seems that the option to discard 3 and draw 3 is too good to resist for control style, and that this card just needs some love. Let's move on. At the number 2 spot, we have Milotic. It has the Mentally Calm ability. Your opponent's Pokemon in play and all attached cards can't be put into your opponent's hand. This card directly affects the supporter Penny, which states, put one of your basic Pokemon and all attached cards into your hand. Penny is good for preventing KOs and escaping the active spot, but particularly for resetting Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX so that its Blood Moon attack can be reused in back-to-back turns. Milotic also, however, impacts Professor Turo's scenario, which we are seeing more of, and reads, put one of your Pokemon in play into your hand and discard all cards attached to that Pokemon. That includes evolution Pokemon like Charizard EX if it's on the verge of being KO'd, even though it's an evolution Pokemon. And Turo is also to be found in any number of decks like Gardevoir and PAL, among others. Last at number 1, we have Drakloak. It has the Recon Directive ability. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand. Put the other card on the bottom of your deck. You would use Drakloak as a draw engine and possibly an attacker if need be. You could theoretically pair it with anything, ladies and gentlemen, but something like Noivern EX seems particularly salient because it is a stage 1 and has the covert flight attack. For 2 colorless energy and 70 base damage, it reads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon, and attacking basics are found all over the place right now. It also doesn't hurt that there's a dragon theme going on here. Okay, Dr. Red, but how would you get that to work? Well, something like this. You put 2 to 3 Drakloak down, get something in the active, whether through Drakloak's draws or not, build something else on the bench in the 2 to 3 other spots for backup like you normally would, and keep a Pidgeot V handy so you don't deck out. But Dr. Red, why would you do that? Why would you play Drakloak instead of Pidgeot EX or Rotom V? There are 3 reasons, young grasshopper. First, it reduces analysis paralysis, the technical term for overthinking. Pidgeot EX control tends to instill this phenomenon in its pilots because the card gives you access to everything in your deck via its quick search ability, allowing you to search for any one card in the deck. And you may not know the ideal card for each in-game situation. The archetype can take a long time to master and some players just give up. Drakloak has the potential to reduce the paralysis, yet still give you an adequate amount of resources to work with by viewing up to 8 cards and keeping 4 if you have 4 Drakloak on the bench. Second, Drakloak does not end your turn. Rotom V has the instant charge ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 3 cards from the top of your deck, but then your turn ends. Block Snorlax players love Rotom V because they can build a hand without fear of needing to attack because they aren't attacking for turn. Last, you can always evolve into Dragapult EX and take a KO if you play the proper energy. On the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, the potential here is mitigated by a number of objections. First, while it may reduce analysis paralysis, one might argue it is inefficient. You need the right cards, not just a bunch of them, of which Pidgeot takes care, so Drakloak is not ideal. Second, while Drakloak may not end your turn, Rotom V takes only 1 bench space. You can do a lot more with Rotom V because it affords you those extra bench spaces. Last, unlike Pidgeot EX having 280 HP, Drakloak is easy to KO. 3 or 4 Drakloak equals that many easy prizes for your opponent, leaving you without a draw engine or a win condition. So now let's summarize, everybody. Abomasnow prevents healing. Oinkologne functions as item control. Amoonguss discards your opponent's hand. Barbarical puts your opponent's prizes in the lost zone. Screamtail EX prevents the use of supporters and discards energy. Gothitelle manipulates the opponent's top deck. Sharpedo discards up to 3 cards from your opponent's hand. Greedent EX discards 3 and draws 3. Milotic prevents your opponent's Pokemon from returning to their hands directly from the active spot or bench, and Drakloak is a substitute draw engine. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. What did I miss? Where am I wrong? Please leave a comment. Take care of yourselves, and may God hold you in the palm of his hand.